do you put into perspective the role Gil Hodges played in turning the Mets from also-rans to World Series champions?
Well, Eamon, it's hard to do it better than Seaver just did. And, over the years, I've talked to a lot of those 69 Mets, and they all say the same thing about Guy Hodges, about how respected he was, how they kind of like, they almost revered him as a father type figure. And, the job he did in really, kind of nurturing that 69 team. He had him in 68. He said, and I remember Seaver saying he treated them differently, allowed them to kind of be who they were, young guys. And in 69, he kind of stood on them and made them grow up a little bit. And that had a lot to do with them winning. So he's, as much as he's known for what he did in Brooklyn with the Dodgers, Mets fans, he'll always be the guy who won that 69 championship.
John, it's amazing to consider that he was on the ballot 34 times before Sunday. But why was now the right time for Gil Hodges to get enough votes and become a Hall of Famer?
Well, I think a lot of it always has to do with the makeup of those committees, who's on those committees, how lenient or how hard they're going to grade guys. Hodges was always a borderline candidate as a player, strictly as a player. And then when you add in what he did with the 69 Mets, then I think that does qualify him. I really think the Hall of Fame should be a place where you celebrate guys like Gil Hodges in the totality of his career. And you saw it, I think, with this committee, they recognized that. I think you saw it in terms of putting a guy like Jim Cott in as well, another borderline guy, but always an ambassador for the game, a guy who's been around the game forever. So I do think the Hall of Fame is made for guys like that. And but when it comes right down to it, I think it depends over the years who's on these committees. And until this year, they've always graded him. They've graded a little too hard for him to get in.
Gil Hodges passed away in 1972, so John, many of our younger viewers aren't aware of his accomplishments, but how would you describe how revered he was in this town as both a Dodger and a Met?
Yeah, he was one of New York's own, Brooklyn's own first, and then New York's own with the Mets. And you got to go back to that era, I think, to appreciate it. Remember, in those days, the ball players, they basically didn't make a whole lot more money than their next door neighbor. They lived in the same blocks with their neighbors who will working ordinary 9-to-5 jobs. And for that reason, I think they became beloved for being part of the neighborhood, part of the community, more so than what you see today. And then, the Dodgers were a team that was always there. They finally broke through in 55 and won the championship there. So he's revered for being part of that team as well. The famous Boys of Summer over the years, that grew into a legend. And then for what he did with the Mets, I think if you weren't around, you weren't aware of the way players were regarded in that era, it's hard to appreciate just how beloved he was.